we have a tendency to recreate unconsciously what's in there. So if
Gotcha.
if we don't deal with those patterns, they have a tendency to recreate themselves. That's why we keep attracting the same relationships usually, or there are many techniques, but the most important thing with anxiety is first to understand what it is and reframe it. So you're not trying to get rid of it. You understand what it is. So
Okay, everybody, another show. Two guys, I'm just saying, but you'll see
Yes.
three of us. So wait, two guys, I'm just saying. It's Al and, of course, I'm the boy Lewis, and one other gentleman here that I've known for a very long time, Joe Tabb. Let's put the cards on the table. So Joe and I know each other from the days that both of us were series regular on a Fox show called Desire, and that went out all over the world. Joe and I became good friends, even though we sort of had different storylines on the show. I think we did maybe two scenes together, but we ate lunch every day together. So that was kind of cool. And then, of course, Joe came in with us for Standoff, our concept short. And thanks to Joe's performance, we've been winning a lot of awards. Joe Tabb.
hey Al, hey Lewis, thanks
How
for
you
having
doing,
me.
Joe?
So
I'm doing great.
let the audience know, Joe, besides acting, what you do. Make it official, because I don't want to screw up your
Yeah,
title.
I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, and
Mhm.
I teach hypnosis at a college for hypnosis. I teach NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is like Tony Robbins' background. I work at a dual diagnosis treatment center for addiction, and I have a private practice where I help people in every issue, like mainly achieving goals. Like I love working with actors and people like that, but work with everything from anxiety to smoking cessation to relationship issues and stuff like that.
Would part of this be called 2-degree law of attraction? When I know you help people with problems, but also people that want to be in a certain place in their life. Would that sort of be law of attraction?
Yes, in a nutshell, that's what I actually certify people in, the law of attraction and hypnosis, and understanding what it really is and that it's real. And there's a lot of reasonable science, or at least it's very logical and practical, the approach, but there are mystical aspects to it that no one can really explain. What some call like the collective unconscious, or the super unconscious. There are parts of our brain that, if we know how to access it, will get us to the moon. Build skyscrapers, turn oil into plastic
Yeah.
or medicine.
For those of us that don't know, because I was reading part of your bio and I've been on your website, and a lot of great information and a lot of great clips on your social media as well. Brain spotting. For those of us that don't know, what is brain spotting, and how do you help people with that?
Oftentimes, whenever we have an unprocessed event in our lives, right? The emotions are too intense, especially when you're young, before 12, or you have a shocking event or embarrassing event, and we can't handle the emotion. So the subconscious mind represses it. It becomes this kind of like hum in the back of our minds. Very important pattern that affects our lives. We don't realize it's affecting us. And because the emotions were trapped.
So you help them get past that traumatic.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a really embarrassing situation that the brain says, let's avoid it at all costs, or let's hold on to it because we can't accept it. Like, being rejected, and especially for actors, like getting comfortable with not being picked. So your brain is more interested in being picked rather than avoiding rejection. And so we have a tendency to recreate unconsciously what's in there. So if we don't deal with those patterns, they have a tendency to recreate themselves. That's why we keep attracting the same relationships usually, or same friends or bosses. I attract Al over and over, guys.
Wait, is that good or bad?
It all depends now.
Well, so Joe, for the people who are watching or listening to our podcast, the law of attraction, part of it, you're the expert, but before this became very well known, and when I started reading about it, I used to say to myself, I used to do this a long time ago before it became very popular and known. And what I would do is if I was up for a job, I would picture myself in that studio every
Uh-huh.
day and thinking, okay, and I would see myself. If I wanted an acting role, I would picture myself on set. Or if I was doing a voiceover, I would be in the booth and I would picture that constantly. And then subconsciously, it was just a part of my life. And most of the time, I booked it one after another. Is that basically what it's about?
It's the beginning of it for sure. Once you project yourself into a certain situation, in the right state, it goes into the subconscious mind and it becomes familiar. And if something's
Mhm,
familiar and you like it, there's brain has a tendency to want to recreate what's familiar and what you like. So if you make something familiar and it's pleasant, and then there's no reason to not have it in the world, like you're not worried about a situation that might show up,
mhm,
and it's very clean. Your subconscious will find ways to draw you to it and it to you. You don't even have to get woo woo about it, although always gets woo woo. But you could just look at the brain as a pattern recognition, like an expectation device that's
mhm,
always expecting what's familiar and wanting to look for it and create it. And so it starts to
Uh,
carve out your reality to only look for the pattern that's important. But if we're in angst and we're hoping and wishing and we're uncomfortable when we think about that thing, what we're really doing is putting energy on the thing we don't want and the emotions around that
mhm.
thing we don't want. I was working in New York. I wanted to do film in New York. And I imagine getting off the airplane. And I did this for 3, 4 months without doing anything, just doing it every day, like this, that feeling. And I just kept fostering this I call the triad, this positive expectancy, but gratitude for having it now and gratitude for knowing it's on its way, kept the focus and just allowed everything else to flow. All of a sudden, my
Mhm.
friend Luca calls me. We start talking. And he calls me back. He goes, "Oh, my God, I just realized they're looking for a guy to play a transgender, like a guy to play a woman and in this movie, and I look like a caveman. They don't want it to be funny. It's like a real cool switch in the movie. And they're looking for like a guy who could play a gangster, but play a woman at the same time. And his features are like a caveman. So he said, you got soft features. And I just knew that was it. I called my agent. I was never more assertive in my life. And normally I'm not assertive that way, but I knew it was my job. And I said, listen to me, you got to get me in this part. He said, no, they're only casting local. I said, I have a house in New York. Well, they're not seeing anyone from their tape. Show them my tape. I said, you got to send them the tape. Send it to casting. I gave him the producer's number that I just knew it was mine. I could only miss out on what was mine. That's what you would call collected inspired action.
What you're saying is that it's never, I gotta have it, I gotta have
Yeah,
it. It's just let it go.
exactly. You got to let go of all that, what's called excess potential, and just be in
You know,
intentional expectation and confidence.
that story brings me back to the expert saying it's never what you don't want, it's what you do want. And
uh,
people do that. I hear that all the time. It's, I don't want to go here or I don't want this to happen. And that's exactly what you're going to get. When I was living there, I had gone up for this very big commercial for, I think it was Celebrity Cruises, and they were going to do a cruise and then white glove service through Alaska on a train. And it was just beautiful to shoot. I go to the audition, and because it was in Alaska, not Hawaii, if it was in Hawaii, I wouldn't book it. If it was in a place that was freezing, because I hate anything cold, cold weather, I don't like. So I picked up the phone and I called the agent and I said, I'm going to book this. And she said, oh, that's a great way to think. I said, no, 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 you don't understand. I am going to book this. There's no doubt. And she said, well, why do you feel that way? I said, because it's cold. If it was shooting in Hawaii and it was beautiful, I wouldn't book it. But I know that I'm going to book it because I do not like uh, cold weather. Now, there was the do not. That's where that came in. And about 4 hours later, she called me and she said, do you have a coat? I said, why? She said, you booked it.
you deal with people that have a lot of anxiety, and I think that holds a lot of people back. And Al and I talk about this a lot. I remember when we lived in LA, he used to tell me, hey man, when you're feeling stressed out, just go out to the mountains and just picture yourself in that sports car that you love. You're enjoying
Mhm.
the views and stuff. And I would do that every once in a while. And we just kept progressing in different parts of my career, and I would share with him and his parts of his career. But people that deal with anxiety, and like a lot of us, we got new new businesses and stuff like that, and we just fear that part of failing. How do we deal with that, and how do you give them advice to move on and just get over the anxiety? I'm not going to say get over the fear, because we always have that fear of losing and failing and whatever our endeavors are. But how do we move on from that anxiety, and how do you teach us how to keep moving forward?
That's a really good question. What I found is there are many techniques, but the most important thing with anxiety is first to understand what it is and reframe it. So you're not trying to get rid of it. You understand what it is. So let's look at anxiety. All it is the brain sees something or projects something that it remembers you never mastered. And what that simply means is mastering means like, what's that? A dog, right? Oh. And then you start to pet it and you get comfortable with it, and the nervous system drops. And now the dog is associated to comfort rather than fight flight. You got a beautiful German Shepherd, and now you're sleeping by that dog, right? So no matter what happens, if we're introduced in life slowly, incrementally, successively, and successfully, we now feel empowered, so we know what to do. But if we got introduced to something too fast, too shocking, the brain will always say, remember that thing? That's like a snake. I don't know what to do with it. And it starts sending off an alarm. And the alarm is a precursor to fighting or running. It's when the nervous system doesn't know what to do that creates the anxiety. It's saying, wait a minute, are we fighting? No. It needs to know that these emotions need to leave. It doesn't mean you like being rejected. It just means you don't need what's called the fight-flight system. You just need acceptance.
So, Joe, and at the end of the podcast, we'll give out your contact information on how to get a hold of Joe Tabb. So, with all of the craziness that goes on in the world every single day, and with people and social media, it's constantly coming at you. Let's do a step by step for the average person that just wants something in their life. It could be a relationship. It could be a certain job. It could be something that, I don't know, they want to go away or to a place somewhere in the world that they've only fantasized about. What would be the steps that you take them through with sort of a law of attraction that anybody would be able to do and understand?
Okay, I'll give you the surface level, obviously, because I would have to go into the beliefs and emotions in the way, but this will help bring up the beliefs and the emotions. There's two basic things that need to happen. The first thing is it's a combination of law of attraction and practical neuro-linguistic programming. The first thing you want to do in any goal is reverse engineer it. This is magic. You go to the end result as if you're there. You look back and say, what must have happened to make me that successful? And you'll go, I don't know. Say, well, you better know. And then it starts opening up the brain to possibilities because it bridges the chasm from here to here. It feels like it already happened, like they do with us in school, right? You get your master's and your bachelor's, your master's. And so it's like guaranteed. Now your brain really feels you have a guarantee because it feels possible. You're open to the possibilities. So that's the first thing that's imperative. Then the second thing you want to do is to make sure you're not waiting for that thing to give you the state of the wish fulfilled. You reverse engineer. Then you go to the end and you have to feel those feelings of having now. But the brain says, wait a minute, you're not even willing to feel the nice feelings in your body that you would have when you're there. You must not want it. You must want to suffer over it and want to want it. Right. So that's why when we want, we're normally in angst. So you want to pin out about 3 things that you would feel when you're there. I feel connected. I feel abundant. I feel wanted. And then you have to stay with that feeling. Then you lock that feeling in and you say, mofo, no one's going to take this feeling. This is mine.
Yes,
now I can want. And now I'm not in angst. Now I'm excited about getting it because it's believable and I already feel good. So those 2 are really, really important. And so you start practicing that every day. And then you break it up to the smallest goal, the achievable goal, but the brain is happy about it because it bridges the chasm. It feels like it's connected to that string. It doesn't feel like you're just working hard for no reason. You already created your life. You're just filling in the blanks, like building a house. You already saw it in reverse. There's no guessing. There's no doubt. There's just movement.
Is there another way of laying to that where what would it feel like if this happened? And can you do that?
Yeah.
I know I have read something to where stay in the feeling of if you asked yourself, what would it feel like if I got this job? Or what would it feel like if I had this relationship with someone or a business relationship? and then stay in that feeling of how good it would feel. Is that another way to go?
That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah. Take on the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Surround yourself with that you wish for, so your gladness be full.
Okay.
Is that feel, because that's the tuning fork that tells the subconscious mind what you want, that you actually want it, not want to want it. Because if you're not feeling that feeling, then you're in angst.
Let's be honest. There are people that are in a negative state of mind.
Yes.
We see them every day. That if you ask the question, especially in an elevator, and you have nowhere to go, and you're just trying to be nice and say, "Hey, how are you today?" And they take that deep breath and go. What would you tell those people? And you know who you are, who do this every day, maybe by habit. What would your advice be if they come to you of how to get them out of that negativity?
Say, stop it.
Easy for you to see, because there are people, and I know some of them, they live there so long that they're comfortable living in that negativity.
As a hypnotherapist or any therapist, is you have to kind of meet them where they're at, because that person, believe it or not, the reason they're like that, I know this is going to sound weird, but the reason that person's like that is because when they were complaining as a child, the parent never spent the time they needed to be loving and present, but yet keep a boundary at the same time. What the parent is supposed to do is be present with them, hear them, and let them know they're not alone, because life sucks sometimes. And then keep a boundary or tell them they have to do something, but they have to do that first. So the child's nervous system can attune, feel more empowered, and then go into life. But the parent has their own stuff, and they do one of three things. Either stop it, I'll give you something to yell about. So they have the child repress it. So that's one thing they do. The second thing they do is they enable the child. I'll do it for you. Let me do your homework. Who are those bullies? Where's that teacher? Because that's what my brain is used to, not overcoming and mastering those moments and learning that if I complain enough, that someone may fix it for me. And the third pattern is distraction. Let's go get some ice cream. It's okay. Let's do this. Look at this toy.
Okay.
And that creates kind of an addiction pattern sometimes. Like every time I'm uncomfortable, I got the message I need to change my chemical state. So I eat ice cream, or I start drinking, or you know what I mean? I start doing something because I got the message the state needs to change.
Yes. So when you were talking about earlier about reverse engineering, so let's say just a lot of us, you know, we dream about that beautiful home overlooking the ocean. So in going back, I see myself at the house overlooking the ocean, and then I step back and I go, okay, so to get here, I did this. So I'm taking myself to the steps that I'm actually going to go through to get to that final goal, which is my beautiful house in front of the ocean.
Yes, that's the practical part. So there's 2 points to that. The law of attraction part is a little different. So I do both to keep both hemispheres happy. So you do that, like you just said, but remember, it's not just what you do, it's what has happened to you. You got better at whatever you're doing. You happen to make more money. Someone gave you a tip, a stock tip. In other words, be open to things that happen to you, not just things you did. Because as we all know, most significant things in our lives, not something we did. It's something that someone just called us out of nowhere. So you have to add those possibilities. That I guess that would be possible if Al introduced me to someone and you worked out a deal and you made a ton of, whatever that is, right? Okay. So that's the first point to that. Now, once you do reverse engineering, this is how you let the subconscious, this is what I call the difference between programming, what I just said, the computer programming is left hemisphere, like I just said, and artificial intelligence, what I call universal intelligence, which is in artificial intelligence, no programming. There's just a prompt and you trust that it's going to access all the data it needs to give you what you want, right? So law of attraction is you make your brain happy. And then you go back into the future, you're really there. You see the house, you fall in love with it, not wanting it, you just receive it, you just love it, right? Now we go to the future again, and I say to them, now remember, people just get off a bus, and it's happened, off of bus in Kansas, and just walk into a coffee shop, meet a casting director. So can you be open to the things you didn't even consider, couldn't imagine, couldn't even know that you didn't know that you didn't know that you can now start to know? And then it scrambles their brain to open up to possibilities, not to be so driven on just the steps that they believe within their limiting beliefs can happen. You open up to the subconscious, what I call universal intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, but it scans everything, everyone, the whole collective unconscious in order to put you in the right places as long as you get out of the way.
What is the What is the number one negativity that you find since you've been doing this that people need help with? Is there one that
Yeah.
stands out above everything else?
There's two basic ones, and they're because they're most primitive, they're most intense, and they're most prevalent. They're two basic ones, which is either I'm controlled and in trouble, like people are mad at me, or I'm not good enough and I'm rejected. The other one will be they just want to avoid conflicts. They always mess up people and they always screw over people. They're always disappointing people. And the other one is the one who's always hurt. It feels like no one's ever there for them. I'm there for you, but no one's there for me. I work hard and no one's there. And those are the two most dominant patterns that I've seen.
Tab, so we need the people who are listening, watching. How do they get a hold of you who could obviously use your help? For your number, if you want to give that out, your website, how do they get in contact with Joe Tabb?
I don't want anybody calling me or contacting me. I came here to hang out with you guys. I'm busy enough.
I told you he's crazy, but I love him.
The Tabb Technique, 2Bs, thetabtechnique.com, 2Bs. Numbers on there. You can contact me there. But if you want to contact me, just text me at 323-377-2531.
That was great, Joe. Thank you for your time.